What's going on Twitch and YouTube? Welcome to episode 38 of the U.S.S. CERRITOS tutorial. I'm Zero and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in to today's episode. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Today we're going to be moseying our way back into working on engineering. We're going to be getting a lot of prep work done today. We've only got about a 21-minute video, but that's because tomorrow's episode Friday's episode, I should say, is actually going to be 38 minutes. I couldn't merge the two together because I didn't want to go over an hour. But we're still going to be getting some very important things done in engineering, and we're also going to get a little bit of prep work done on the bridge. Because really, we're going to be building these two things hand in hand because of the layout in which CERRITOS is going to end up being. Because essentially the problem that we're going to be having, and one of the reasons why I've waited up until this point to really get into building engineering in the bridge, is because the bridge sits right on top of the warp core, pretty much. Well, right in front of it, above it and in front. So having the turbo lifts come down or pretty much would impede right around this area on the sides. So I was having a little bit of trouble figuring that out, but ultimately I've got a nice solution to get around that. We won't have time to get into it today, but nonetheless, the stuff that we're going to be working on is still going to be essential. We will get in that tomorrow and then into next week. Today we're going to be focusing more on the doorway that actually goes into engineering, which if you go back just a moment ago to the picture of the CERRITOS, they both have this same entryway point. And you'll notice this from room to room. When you go into the CERRITOS, it looks eerily similar to the Enterprise D. So that's one of the many reasons why I keep incorporating that into this ship, just because that's what they did. Now, we're going to go ahead and grab that white terracotta, because that's what we need to get that nice cream look that's in line with next generation. We're just going to do like a little arch going around our doorway, and then we're going to build out our walls here a little bit. And we're just going to clean this up. At least on the sides we'll just have white. And that'll be like a nice transition between the two rooms. The terracotta on each side of it. Not a bad color palette between the white and terracotta. We're going to count that on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now we're going to do a row of the gray. Because this is pretty much just an just a little bit wider wall. Because based off that screenshot, the walls for that entryway point, it's pretty much the walkways for the corridors. So we're pretty much going to be using that same pattern here, and what we'll do is maybe add like a computer console along the sides. We're going to wall off this area for now. And I think it actually is going to work out, because I think one of the things too that was holding me up is that I was trying to figure out how to maintain a perfect circle. And then it kind of, and I wanted to do that because that's how it looked in the picture for the CERRITOS. And then it kind of dawned on me that really that perfect circle is really only based off that point of view. So as long as that's how it looks when we first come into engineering from this entryway point, we're in good shape. So what I'm basically getting at is that we can totally get away with adding this wall here while still staying true to the layout of what engineering should be, even though we're kind of sort of cheating. Alright, so now we're making our second arch. And I made that just a little too big on that side. Alright, we're in good shape. Maybe make it wider. See, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, it doesn't look horrible, but I almost kind of want to lip on both sides. I don't know. Want to make sure that we get our layout of our lights more or less the same. Doesn't have to be an exact replica, at least for this room, because this configuration is going to be slightly different because this is technically a work area. Now, the only exception that I'm really going to be taking here is that I'm not going to put a table in the middle. And I had actually tried to, but then I decided against it because no matter how I built it, it basically became a hindrance when you walked into this room because you had to walk around it. So I just decided, you know what? I think that's going to be one exception I'm going to take here. I'm not going to do a computer console in the center, and we'll just do consoles built into the wall, and I think we'll call it a day with that, at least for this area. Let's finish up our ceiling here. All right, that looks pretty good. And now we're going to build out our computer consoles. We need the white stairs, and I just covered it up, but we need to also grab blue concrete. Light blue concrete, to be specific. Using yellow right now so we can deal with that. So we're just going to go one forward. We're going to take out a row. And the reason I'm doing this is so I can go down below. And in the middle, we're going to do 2 rows of white. And now we're going to look up and then place the stairs down. And get rid of that. Fill that in also. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. Doesn't matter what color you use initially in the middle, because you're going to end up deleting it. You could use the blue, so this way you could leave that if you wanted to. Save yourself a little bit of build time, but I don't mind going back and forth. Alright, perfect. We got the blue in there, so that's basically the computer screen. And now we're going to top it off again with the stairs, but looking downward. There, it looks pretty good. We could even do maybe like a strip of gray too wide in the middle here. That could be an option. I don't think I do that here in the video, but that could be something that I come back and do. Yeah, see, so I'm trying to gauge here what it's going to take to build a desk in the center. And see, this is going to be a problem. Now, it coming up to the walls, that's not my concern, because at the end of the day, if I really needed to, I could just make the walls wider, and that would be a simple fix. The problem that I'm having with this is that I hate how I have to maneuver around it just to get out of the room. That doesn't make sense to me on a starship, you know, because like, I don't know if any of you have ever been on an aircraft carrier or a submarine, but I actually live in Florida, and I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, so they always had like fleet weeks that they do in May, and like they'd have the aircraft carriers and the submarines that they bring down. And that was one thing I noticed when I had a chance to go on one of the submarines, is that it's very small and compact. You don't see, like, there's not like a lot of stuff like that you'd have to maneuver around. You know, like the walkway is always clear is what I'm getting at. And I feel like that would be true to a starship. So like, if you have to walk around and maneuver around it that much, that's how it would be in everyday life, and it's not a good engineering thing to do. I don't even think that's a thing, but it wouldn't really work right is what I'm trying to get at. But I think we'll be able to make it work without. So right now we're just going to fill in these walls. We are going to come back and do some cool detailing with these and like make it look like there's some type of futuristic mechanical part in these walls to go along with the warp core. But that's something that you could say about the next generation. Like if you go back, go on YouTube and type in Enterprise D Engineering Virtual Tour. And that's a good way to get a lot of detail on the type of room that we're going to be making. But you're going to notice something. You're not really going to see a heck of a lot of other mechanical pieces other than the warp core. It's the warp core, and then it's a bunch of computer consoles around it. That's really pretty much it. So that doesn't give us a lot of wiggle room here to build some really cool stuff. So we pretty much have to focus on doing the same thing. That the warp core is the main attraction, and then we're gonna highlight it by the cool layout of our walls, and then layering in computer consoles where we need to, but not having a super abundance of them either. See, now I'm just adding a layer to the top lip of our wall here, and I'm going with a cut again. Probably going to come back again at some point here with a half slab. And I'm not gonna lie, this room was a challenge to figure out, simply because of figuring out the turbo lift situation from the bridge down into the lower deck. But once I figured out a way around that, I pretty much had no problem with the remainder of this room. But sometimes it just takes a little bit before you get there. Even at this point, by the end of the episode, we still won't be there yet. Because I had it at this point in the recording, I hadn't actually figured out the solution on how I wanted to go about it. We are going to go pop up into the bridge area in today's episode, and I think we're going to clear out a little bit more room to get a little bit more of a solid idea of how much room we have to work with up there. But we don't need a huge room for the bridge, because that's something I noticed with the CERRITOS. The bridge is not very big. It seems smaller than the Enterprise D bridge. So we don't need a ton of space to work with. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, because our ship isn't huge, and I think we'll be able to make it work out. The one exception I really had to take, though, in order to make that work the most, is that we're going to have to make a significant change to the warp core. And when we're done with this room, our warp core is going to look kind of similar how it looks now, but I'm basically going to redesign it completely. Because I pretty much cheat, and what I did to get around this problem is that I essentially facade out the warp core, and I have the turbo lift going through inside of it, but you'll never know if I didn't point that out. Well, maybe you would. We'll have to get into that, and when I actually build that out, I'm going to ask everybody what they think of it, because I honestly think that it was a very clever idea as far as the problem that I was having, how to go about it. And sometimes that's just what you're going to have to do. You're just going to have to get creative to figure out a solution to a problem, because if I hadn't done that, to be honest with you, I would have had a real problem having the turbo lifts coming down into this room. They would have been coming down to a point where you would have been able to blatantly see them, and it would have made the whole room fall apart, I think. Right now, we're just kind of trimming away our sides here, making it look a little bit less like a circle. That's something I noticed going on the virtual tour of the Enterprise D, that this ring going along the warp core was not actually a circle, but almost a square with rounded corners. So I decided, I can probably make that change and it wouldn't look bad. What I'm doing right here, this was some exploratory building. And while it doesn't look bad, I'm ultimately not going to keep this. Typically, I would say that you can keep this on your build if you like it, but with the changes that we're going to be making in the next 2 episodes, I don't think it's going to work. So everything that we're doing at this moment with these gray blocks, basically making like ribbing going along the walls and the roof, we're not going to be able to use any of them. Because I almost had this idea that I was going to make like a secondary room within this room, going around the warp core, because that's kind of how the Enterprise D is. But from the screenshot that we have of the CERRITOS, that is the one differentiation that I noticed between the two, is that the CERRITOS doesn't have that extra room. Like after you walk in to engineering, like you have that first room that we just built in the beginning of the episode, and after you pass that, it's an open kind of circular room, at least from that perspective. So that's really going to be the main focal point, I think, for engineering, and trying to stay true to that while also figuring out how to get that turbo lift to go up into the bridge. Because I'm not going to lie, even what I settle on, it's not perfect. But I think it's a great solution with the problem that I was having. There was pretty much no other way that I could have figured out how to get around it. Other than doing the teleportation block. But I'm not even convinced that that's something that's going to be exact. I need to actually do some little bit more research on that, because the only concern I have with the teleportation block is that when you put in your coordinates, is that if you actually spawn in the exact coordinates that you place in, because if it's off, then it just places you around that general area, then that could be a real issue spawning from, you know, level to level. But I do need to get on and figure that out before the end of this, because I would like to actually have that to be able to go from the saucer down to the lower hull. That's something we are going to do too. We will build out the lower hull, even if, let's say, even in a worst case scenario, if the teleportation block doesn't work, and the only way that's going to happen is, like I said, is that if it's not exact with the coordinates I'm putting in. And I also have to figure out how to bring all that stuff in. I know that they have videos on it, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But that's also because I haven't started working on the secondary hull just yet either, inside of it. But I figure that by the time I get down there, that's probably when I will. But I think, yeah, we're going to totally flesh out that area down there and build out that deck pretty much to be the deflector control room. I think that would be fitting. I'm not going to lie, I was so close to building this room down there, but I ultimately decided against it because I would not have been able to build this room at this scale down there, for one, and for two, based off the blueprints and what I can find online, I'm 99.9% certain this is where the warp core goes. I haven't been able to have anybody confirm that I reached out to on YouTube that either does informative videos on starships or whatever, but the people that I've tried to get information from, I couldn't get anything out of them, so I just kind of ran with it. I think I am right, though. I'm pretty certain that this is where the warp core would go. If it's not, I mean, that would be great, because then I could always make a smaller one down in the secondary hull and then make a prettier wave coming down from the bridge. But even what I end up with here, it doesn't look bad at all. I shouldn't even say a prettier version, because I actually quite like engineering and how I have it. Like, this whole ship is turning out to be very unique, and I really like that, because that's something I've really tried to do from ship to ship for a couple of reasons. One, because I think every ship should have its own identity a little bit. You know, there's always going to be certain traits here and there that you carry over from ship to ship, like the basic layout of their corridors and things like that. But once you start to get out of that, you know, you can really take a lot of liberties with some of these things that you're doing. And that's where a lot of the fun comes in, and I like that. That if you go through the interiors on all of my ships that I've done interiors on, from the 2009 Enterprise to the Vengeance to the Enterprise A, and then the Disco Enterprise, and now this one, they're all different, you know? And I think that's pretty cool. Definitely gives some variety. I'm not gonna lie though, so far, out of this entire build, I think my favorite room is so far the shuttle bay. I really like how engineering came out. I think you all will be happy with how the bridge comes out. The bridge did not come out bad at all. It looks pretty good, actually, all things considered. But it wasn't a difficult build to do. It was actually pretty easy to build the bridge out. And I don't think anybody will have a problem with it, but it looks pretty neat. it looks about as close as you can get it to what it would look like. But with that being said, when we make the Enterprise D, even though like the bridges look similar, like I already know it, like the Enterprise D bridge is going to be a lot bigger. And then there's also going to be a couple of variations between the two. I keep talking about the Enterprise D more. I'm just so excited. Like, there's a really, we've still got a ton of work to do on this build, but I can see the light at the end of the tunnel at this point. Like when I was doing the Disco Enterprise, that it's really only a matter of time now before we're going to be done with this build, and then I'm going to be hopping over to the Enterprise D. But all right, now we're up in the saucer, or excuse me, the bridge. Now we got to be careful here because you can't take off too much of the walls, or yeah, the walls going along the ceiling here. You see, I'm not going past these white strips here because we really can't. Because if we do, then we're building outside. So we're kind of sort of limited on space here, both on our sides and behind us here, because if we build any further back, we're going into our warp core area. But this isn't too bad. This is a pretty decent amount of space to work with. You see that hole right there in the front. I was toying with at one point that I was going to have a turbo lift going on there, and now I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get up there, and ultimately what I'm going to decide on, because we've pretty much going to be at the end of today's episode. Like I said, we're mostly at, getting a lot of prep work done for what we're going to be doing tomorrow. But I am going to give you a heads up that basically we're going to be making turbo lifts. We're going to have two of them, one here and then one here. And trust me on this, it's going to look awesome. From the perspective when you walk into engineering from the picture, it's going to look pretty close to how it looks. But this was the only way that I can make it work. I basically had to make the warp core a little bit larger, which kind of works out because from the picture, the warp core is so big anyway. But yeah, we're going to get into that. I'm going to let the last minute and 50 seconds ride out just in case there's anything else that I missed here. But we've definitely we've gotten a little bit done today. Not a ton of work. And it sucks too, is like I like those pillars in there. They don't look bad, but for what we're going to be, the changes that we're going to make, it's just it's not going to go with the build. We're going to have to get rid of them. Okay, see, we can't take out that corner either. We're back up in the bridge. Literally trying to shave off as much as I can here, going along the sides. And I'm doing this because we want the maximum amount of space we possibly can. But I also don't want to change how my ship looks on the outside. So we got to make this work based on what we have on the inside. And now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but we've made an extra layer of room for ourselves to where now, if for whatever reason, if I want to change the color of this, I can add another layer to it, and I'm not really bringing it in too much more than what it was before. I've given myself just a little bit of wiggle room, basically, and I think that'll work out pretty good. Yeah, see, I was even, at this point, I was thinking, maybe I can try to make a doorway on each side, but this just wouldn't work. And ultimately, I'm going to have to build turbo lifts back here on each side, just how it is on CERRITOS and also the Enterprise D. Because in order to do this without it messing with the warp core, I'd have to build the turbo lifts right here and right here, in hopes of having it connect with a corridor that comes from the front of the saucer going into engineering. But that wouldn't look right. It wouldn't look right to how it is on the show, and that's not, I don't think that's what we want to do here. But anyway, we're going to get into that more tomorrow and also next week. But I just want to thank everybody for tuning in to today's episode. And if you did enjoy this content, if you can help me out, hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Also, new subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on so you always get notified when those new videos drop. And speaking of new videos, Don't forget, you can always catch my live streams at twitch.tv/ZeroElite. My new live streams always drop Sundays through Thursdays, typically between 9 and 10 p.m. Eastern. And you can also catch my YouTube videos at youtube.com/C/ZeroElite. I always have my new Starship Evo builds dropping Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern, and Minecraft videos dropping Tuesdays through Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in. I hope everybody has a happy and safe week, and I'll catch you on the next episode.